This is Quality in the Boardroom. I am Michel Moravia. In MedTech, 4 forces define success. They are speed, safety, risk, and capital. Move too slow, and opportunity dissipates. Move without control, and value dissipates. Deploy capital without clarity, and value erodes. Here, we discuss what the best companies understand, how the forces align to create a strong operating system. Here is where we examine that alignment. Here, the operators, regulators, and investors come not to follow the market, but to define it. Welcome to the boardroom. To my right, I'd love to introduce my strategic moderator, Kwame Ulmer.
Thank you so much, Michel. And it's great that you mentioned those 4 forces. And we're going to have a conversation with Rajit Kamal about some of those 4 forces and how they intersect and impact his day-to-day as a leader at a large medical device company. Rajit?
Well, thank you for having me, Kwame. Thank you for having me, Michel. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I have over 20 years of experience in MedTech, and I always say quality is everybody's #1 job. So looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah. So let's get into those forces. Michel talked about speed. He talked about safety, talked about risk. What's the trade-off you make, or do you make a trade-off at all as you lead your company's business?
It's a very good question. When you think about speed, compliance, quality, and patient safety, it is not a trade-off. I think if you think about that as a trade-off, you are starting with the wrong mindset. I think what you have to do is you have to build speed in the way you do things, in the process, in the governance. And the way I think about this is you have to start with what are non-negotiables. And in my mind, quality, compliance, and patient safety are non-negotiables. You have to start with those constraints. Number 2, you have to make sure you have a process where you are front-loading the risk. What I mean by that is you do DRM. DRM is about identifying risk early in the product development process, identifying risk on reliability, manufacturability. So you have a process where you identify risk early. You create a governance where you make decision-making faster because there will always be trade-offs, and you have to make sure you don't make a bureaucratic process, which is where you move with speed. You create an environment where people are transparent. They're able to speak up. And as a leader, you set the tone. So in my view, speed and quality should never be a trade-off. In fact, you have to create a system where speed is part of your decision-making, where quality, compliance, and patient safety are at the top.
So it sounds like you have a couple KPIs that you think about on a regular basis. You talked about front-loading quality in your process. You talked about DRM. Can you say a little bit more about the key metrics that you focus on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you have to think about metrics in 2 ways. So one is metrics around product development process for me, right? Which is where DRM comes in, which is where supplier audit comes in. Mm-hmm. DRM by definition is about ensuring that you have a product that you scale up, is used in the real world, maintains its reliability, maintains its robustness, right? Which is around ensuring that you are looking at the design the right way, front-loading, you do DFMEAs to understand what the risk analysis is, right? You are able to build some safety, some buffer into your design. You have some redundancy into your design. So doing that assessment early on in the product development process. Same thing with manufacturability. Ensuring you have a design that can be manufactured easily in a very cost-effective way. You can scale that. Ensuring that you get the right suppliers. You do supplier audits. You're able to understand what kind of CAPA process, change management process they have. So I think doing that on the product development side, and then you look at metrics on the outcome side. If you do this right, you have a product that you can scale up, you get a more reliable revenue profile, you get a more reliable margin profile where, as you scale up the product, you should be able to expand your margin. And you have to have quality metrics. You will see fewer challenges downstream What you don't want to do is redesign a product when you're closer to launch, or you have an equality event when you launch a product, right? So the metrics are process metrics around DRM, around some of the process metrics to make sure we are doing things the right way. And then once you launch a product, it's about revenue, it's about margins, and it's about quality events or understanding what kind of risk you have.
And I'd be curious how this shows up. You lead a global organization, you're on a plane a lot, and there are various ways where you can talk to a quality leader about, DRM or supplier quality. Can you give us a window into your world? Where does this show up? Does it show up at Gemba walks, at management reviews, or all of the above? Yeah.
So you have to have a governance process. So, for the product development, we have monthly reviews where we go through the product development updates. And DRM readiness is a key criteria for us to approve a project. So for every product development, we have stage gates. So you have to go through an opportunity exit, commitment exit, and we have certain things you have to answer. We don't let a product move forward unless you have qualified from a DRM perspective. We also train our engineers on DRM so that they understand what that process looks like. As we get closer from a manufacturing standpoint, you have to do supplier audits. We again make sure that we have looked through that, we have done our diligence before we bring those suppliers on. So I think it's a process where you put diligence on the front end. We also do reviews once you launch a product. What customer complaints are we getting? Are we seeing any issues? How quickly are we resolving them? CAPA resolution is one of the key metrics that we look at. Are we scaling the product? How stable is our revenue and the margin profile? So again, as I said, there are process metrics that we look at while we are developing the product, but then once you launch, you monitor some of those as well.
And I heard you say something intriguing. Obviously, you have quality engineers, but you also have engineers that are trained on certain aspects of risk management as well. Is that right?
100%. I mean, if you are in product development, you've got to be trained in that, right? We want people to be trained in DRM. We want people to understand what that means, because that's a key part of developing a product. Yeah.
2025 was a period of shocks from tariffs. 2026, I don't know if anyone predicted this current shock. How have you been thinking about supplier quality, managing suppliers, redundancy in suppliers, or has that come up in your world, supplier quality issues?
Supplier quality is critical. The product that I lead, we have 10,000 components that goes into that. We have hundreds of not only suppliers, we have multiple layers of sub-suppliers. So ensuring that you have the rigor around quality management, around quality processes, having the right checks and balances are absolutely critical in ensuring we are shipping the right product to the customer. End of the day, our products are used on patients. Our products are used by surgeons. You have to have a highest level of diligence in that. So we work with our suppliers to make sure that their quality process meets our standards. We do audits. You have to understand that we have a supplier change. If supplier is making any change, they have to go through a process where we approve that. So I think diligence around supplier management is absolutely critical. Going back to your question around do you train your engineers on DRM? Not only our engineers, Kwame, we train our management team on DRM as well. Because we want to make sure all my leaders, including me, understand what DRM is. And most importantly, they know what is the right question to ask. So when somebody is reviewing product development, people should know what is the right question to ask so that we all understand what risk, if any, are we taking, but how are we ensuring that we are doing all our diligence so that when we scale the product, we don't have any surprises.
So I don't know what your experience has been, Michel, but I've been in corporate settings where the quality engineer is briefing, maybe one or two questions from an R&D engineer, but the managers, they just want to get out of the management review as quickly as possible. But it sounds like you have an engaged leadership team that is actually asking quality questions. It sounds like people are really locked in on the importance of quality at those management reviews. Is that a true statement?
Absolutely. They should be asking quality questions about quality, Kwame. I'm just kidding. I think what is important is we keep quality front and center. So whenever I do reviews, we start with quality. When you say you have a quality first culture, that has to show up. It can't just be in words, right? So when we do product development reviews. You have to make sure you are diving into quality. Even when we do business reviews, quality has to be front and center. What kind of complaints did we see? Did we see any quality issues? What is our, how are we working on the CAPAs that we have? How long does it take for us to resolve that? That has to be front and center. And unless you do that, you will never reinforce that quality first culture.
A quick follow-up there, Rajit, especially when you spoke about the stage gates. I'm very curious, what's the voice of leadership during the stage gates? Who are the leaders, for instance, per your business unit? Are you going to the depth of reviewing the voice of customer and how that translates into requirements, user requirements, and so forth?
So voice of customer is very important in understanding the requirements, being able to understand the risk assessment, being able to finalize what features you have. So the way we do it is we have a project review where we have a cross-functional team. So I have my leadership team, people from all different functions, and we go through the review. So you have a quality review, manufacturing, development, finance, and we ask those questions. Those functional leaders ask those questions to make sure the team has thought through that. Every stage gate process has certain checklists, so that is built into the process of what they need to do. But then we make sure that the leadership team is asking the right questions to ensure that diligence has happened. In almost all cases, we get voice of the customer. We bring surgeons in, we understand what the unmet needs are, we have them play with the prototypes, we have them provide feedback on that. So that's part that's inbuilt into our product development process.
And development as well. Beautiful.
That brings back to a conversation we were having earlier about how organizations manage risk, legal risk. And it sounds like one of the added moats is because you have such a robust quality system with people thoroughly engaged. And I'm going to get to my question. It feels like this is a leading question. It sounds like it provides defensibility and a moat almost from a legal and risk perspective. Would you say that's one of the benefits that people maybe don't think about as much?
Yeah, absolutely. But the way I think about this is that is a byproduct. You have to have the right process because you have to put patients first. Yeah. We have the first responsibility to the patients that our products are used on, to the surgeons who use our product. So that has to be the North Star. This is definitely a byproduct and a side benefit of it, right? Because you don't have issues that reduces your liability, right? But that should not drive that, because then fear is driving what you're doing.
The innovation.
It should be driven by the impact you want to make on the patients, impact you want to make on the surgeons.
Let's talk about what is becoming ever present in all medical devices, and that's software and software updates. And I'm not even going to mention the two letters that come out of everyone's mouth every 15 minutes, AI, ML. How do you think about software changes and the intersection with quality?
Yeah, very important. I mean, we have a team that does software quality. So the product that we have a day will come where most products will have some sort of a software. Software is the brain behind all the medical devices, right? You have to have a regular cadence of software updates. Whether you do a major release, say twice a year, you are doing minor releases more frequently, you are doing patches a lot more frequently. And you have to go through that diligence to make sure that you are doing verification, validation. We have a software quality team. AI is a very interesting one. And I think AI has significant potential. I don't think we have fully tapped into the benefits you can get with AI. You can do wipe coding where you have AI reduce the time of coding, but AI can also help identify risks. AI can connect with multiple. So I think AI has significant potential, Kwame. I see a lot of potential in it. We are a regulated industry. We have to do this the right way. We cannot, we have to make sure that we are taking steps to move in that direction. But I see AI playing a big role in improving the effectiveness and efficiency of our product development process, being able to enable us to be able to bring those software updates. And software updates are important. We throw something out, and obviously we do a lot of diligence. You get customer feedback, and we should be able to react to that so that our user experience is better. Our software drives our hardware. So there are things that you want to constantly improve, which is as part of the process. So we have a software quality team that does that, but I see significant potential with AI.
And as you think about, and I know you mentioned it, but maybe you say a little bit more about the future of the medical device industry. You know, we remember a time where you could be a successful business and you made hips and knees, no software there, right? You're making hips and knees. Pacemakers, not so much. You needed software there. But when you look out 5 years from now, will our industry be dominated by software in medical devices, software as medical devices? Are the days of hardware-only solutions over?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I don't know if you know my background. I used to work in knees. So, in fact, I've spent most of my medical device career working on knee implants. And it's interesting, the drivers of competitive differentiation is no longer the hardware. What I mean by that is no longer the implant. It's enabling technologies, it's robotics, it's navigation that enables you to put the knee the right way. So if you think about how that industry is evolving, it has come to software, right? It has come to how do you bring those, insights, intraoperative insights driven by technology in the OR to put the hardware in the right way. So even in knees and hips, that was a very, hardware, implant-driven industry. Software, AI, robotics is playing a key role and will continue to do so.
The insight I want to go deep a little further in terms of software is, I think of three things that we need to enable. We need to enable that it's safe, it's responsible, and it's transparent. But to be able to do that, gentlemen, there needs to be a new way that we do change management. Change management for hardware, we know, like you said, if you change a supplier, it changes X, Y, Z. But with software and AI, how do we come about doing change management that's iterative and ensure that we, to your point earlier, ensure patient safety?
Yeah, it's a good question. Look, you have to have traceability of the changes that you are making. You have to have a process where you can validate and verify, right? If you don't have that, then that becomes challenging, right? But I think as long as you have traceability, you're able to understand the changes that you're making, what potential impact it can have, and you have a process to do a V&V, verification and validation. I think that's how you make sure that whatever changes you are making is not having any unintended consequences, right? I think AI makes it more efficient. One of the challenges with AI is people think, it's a black box, right? So you have to be able to make sure that you understand that process well, then you put checks and balances, right? AI can't be just doing things on it, especially in our industry. So you have to have the right checks and balances. But I do think having traceability, having the right V&V procedures are the right thing to do.
The FDA experienced a significant reduction in workforce, but as they rehire, they're actually looking to rehire more AI/ML experts. As you think about the medical device companies in the future, are those key hires that you are putting on your roadmap in terms of talent to not only develop the products with AI/ML in mind, but think about quality and even regulatory? Are those some of the things you think about? Or
100%.
Yeah.
I think you have to have people who have experience in not only developing products, quality, regulatory. How shall you think about how AI/ML products are regulated? We interact with the FDA, and their thinking has evolved. I think they are asking the right questions, but they also understand that AI is going to play a key role. And they have a very important role to really enable that innovation in the right way, because look, end of the day, you have to make sure patient safety comes first, right? So we are looking for that talent. I think not just we, I think any industry, no matter who you are, AI will play an important role. And I think that talent, whether it is development, management, is very, very important. I myself went back to school to just study in AI because I'm a little bit older, Kwame. When I went to college, there was no AI, no robotics. Nobody knew what LLM meant. Nobody knew what machine learning meant. And I found myself in a place where these things were coming, and I felt like I was not prepared to ask the right questions. I will never be an expert. I will not do Python programming. But I want to make sure I can ask the right questions. And these days, there are so many courses you can take, right? So I think we all need to become conversant in AI. We all need to understand how it works.
I love that, genuinely. And one thing that you said earlier is that AI is not a black box, right? Quite frankly, I think of AI similar back to the day where we we're able to elevate how well we work by using Microsoft Excel. And as you got better, you know how to do VLOOKUP, pivot tables, and things of that nature. So AI is 70 billion parameters. That's what the LLM stands for. And I think back to your reliability framework, that's that Medtronics. I think we need a similar framework for AI to ensure that it's always auditable, like we spoke about, and we ensure that there's almost a sense of continuous validation because of the speed of which it's changing. How is leadership at your institution thinking about that and heading to 2030?
Look, I mean, I think this is something that thinking continues to evolve in this, Michel. I don't have a perfect answer there, but I think the points you made are absolutely right. You have to have traceability. You have to be able to understand the changes you're making, where the impact is. You have to have the right V&V process, right? If you don't have that, then it's very hard to be able to put something out, right? But things will evolve around the regulatory environment around AI will evolve, how we incorporate that in product development will evolve. But there is no question in my mind that AI will have a significant impact in product development and in being able to identify risk, being able to bring products to market. There's no question in my mind about that.
Well, I want to thank you, Rajit Kamal. This has been an absolutely fantastic conversation. If there's any one thing you want to leave us with as we close out, we'd love your one thing to drop on us.
Well, I guess, I'll probably end with where I started, right? We will bring technology, we will bring AI, things will evolve. But one thing that will not change is patient safety, compliance, and quality first mentality has to be number one. That will never change. How we do that will change, but where we are going, that will never change.
Thank you so much, Rajit, for being with us at Quality in the Boardroom. Thank you for joining us. And now, Michel.
Gentlemen, it has been a pleasure, a sensational conversation. Safety, speed, risk, and capital. When they converge, we have a scalable operating system. When they diverge, we have exposure. Exposure that's rarely visible until it is. This has been Quality in the Boardroom. Until next time.